Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Hi, Gloria. So today we're gonna work on excuse me, the same placemat that we worked on last week, and we'll be showing it again. But today we are going to go ahead and um, quilt our center of our placemat. I'm gonna say table runner, and then I'm gonna go over how I trace and cut and apply the fusible web. I use Steam Seam Light 2 or 2 Light, I'm not sure which way it goes. I do not use heat and bond, sorry. I find I like Steam Seam better because with their new formula that they did a couple of years ago, I can't heat away the glue entirely, and I find with other brands I can. And especially if I'm using my scan and cut, I press longer for that, and I don't want to have that issue. The reason I use the light is the light, Lite, is not as heavy as the regular, so it's not as stiff. So everybody can use whatever, whatever their favorite is. So so a couple of things I want to address because I quilted this one with excuse me, yeah, machine embroidery thread, which is it's a poly blend, I believe it is, but it does shrink up a tad when it's ironed. And when I especially ironed this these pieces down, because I held the iron down for quite a while in these spots, so it's a little wrinkly, but I mean I'm okay with that because it ends up being wrinkly. But I wanted to show you, and today I'll use my regular sewing thread, which is Orifil cotton, and then I'll press it. If I have a minute, I'll press it so you can see that excuse me, the difference. Sorry about that. So today we're going to be doing now. Last week when we did our stitching, let me see if I got that. Oh, I just dropped everything on the floor in case I'm looking for it. So we did that crosshatch quilting. So this time we're going to make it a little easier, and you can see, and I'm holding it this way so it is going to like wrinkle up more, but you can see I just did sort of wavy lines, but to give it a little motion, like I wanted it to be like the wind blowing at night, and I didn't want to have a lot of quilting. Excuse me. So it's up to you how you do yours, but today this is what I'm going to be doing. I'm going to show you. I don't go up and down and then up and down. I don't follow everything the same because that to me would look more like water. So I don't want to always be exactly on the second line like I was on the first, and so on as I'm going down, which really means that you only have to kind of half pay attention to your lines and not work at them being perfect. So I ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lines. And my lines are about some places 2 inches, some places 2.5. Yeah, so between 2.5. And again, unless you really feel the need to, you don't you don't have to have everything exact. To me, especially something like this, if you get too exact, then if you're off a little bit in one place because you were exact everywhere else, you're going to notice it more. Where I'm more random, and so if I do one that's, I don't know, a little closer or whatever, it's not going to be as noticeable because I haven't spaced them all out the same. So hopefully that makes sense to you. So let me set that aside. And I gotta move my machine a little bit out of the way. And let me just check the messages. We're doing okay? All right, so I think I might need to back up a little. Feel like I'm a little close. Okay, I'm trying to see, there we go. I'm trying to see what, so don't mind this pole here, that's my light. So try not to let that distract you. Let me move this machine over, and I can come over this way a little bit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw across, and again, whenever you're using especially a friction pen, make sure you test it on your fabric first, over in a corner somewhere, and then iron it to make sure it goes away and it doesn't leave a mark. So you could use chalk, whatever you want to. So I know, first of all, that this is 14 by 18. And I know that I'm going to be trimming this down to 12 by 16. So I don't need to get up close up here because I'm an inch or so that I'm taking like a, what is it, 2 inch, so an inch off on each side is what's going to happen. So if you need to put a little mark at about the inch so that you have a little bit of a visual, you can do that. So I'm just going to, and if you turn it, I find if I turn it this way so that I'm drawing down instead of drawing across, it's easier for me. But you get yours situated how you want it. So let me just give you a second to get your pen ready and get your fabric ready and get ready to mark. Take a deep breath. You'll be fine. Okay? So I'm going to come down about, I think I'm going to come down about 3 inches. So if you need to measure, you can. Let me see, 3. Because at 1 inch, so let me be this way. So that's about, light's in your way. So about this far. So I'm just going to make a mark right there. So I just made a little mark right there. Can you see it? Oh, I'll make it out onto the, just gives me my, you see, gives me my starting point. And I'm going to draw mine a little darker so that you can see it. So I'm just going along, and I need to keep picking my hand up because as I push my pen, I'm making a bubble because I'm pressing down so much. So let's see if you can, oh, there you go. Can you see that, Mark? Okay, just go for it. Don't be afraid, just go for it. And then I'm going to move down, and I'm going to move down. So I've got a little dip right here. So I'm going to move down, and I usually eyeball it, but if you want to, let's move down 2 inches from that. And I'm just going to make a mark there. See if that helps you out any. And remember, I don't want to follow the exact same. So let me see if I can come in a little closer. So let me go over this mark again. My line doesn't have to be straight. It's kind of scraggly where I went back and forth over it. So see my line? So my only goal is to make sure where this dips down, then I'm at least 2 inches from that dip down. And I'm going to start, I don't want to start above that 2 inches, because if I do, I'm following exactly what this one was, so I don't. So let me do mine. And show you. And I probably have more curve in this than I normally would. But let me do it a couple times here. And I don't mean more curve as in the depth of it. I mean I got more curves going on. Okay, so there's my next one. So see, I got kind of curvy going here. So if I don't like it, I just have my pressing mat. Stick my pressing mat underneath. Grab my iron. And go, yeah, I didn't like that. See? That wasn't too bad, was it? So I'm going to go again. And what I want is I want longer curves. I don't want to look like I'm on the ocean voyage. And I did end up, so you can see, now I did end up a little bit following this one, but it's not bad. And I want to make sure I go off the ends. Even though I'm going to be trimming off, I'm going to start and stop at this edge every time. So let me see if I can move down. Oh, let me make this darker again. Okay, can you see the two? So remember, I don't want to always be that same distance, and I pretty well look like I'm the same distance this whole way. So I want to make sure the next time I go down further, and I'm not even going to look. Under my hand is my other line, and I'm not even going to look at it, so I don't follow it just because my eye wants to follow it. So let me do it a couple times. Okay, so see, there's my next one. So I went a little further away. You're going to ask me how far away I went. I went 2.5 at the narrowest point. So can you see? There we go. You see them? Guess you can see them better if I leave them down. So see? And if I don't like this at this end, because I look kind of scraggly there, I'm just going to come back, and I just put more of a curve in. So see how I was? I just kind of was like, it looked like I made a half-hearted attempt at what I was doing. So this one, so I just came in and changed it. Okay? So I'll give you a minute to just draw a couple lines. Okay, now we'll move on to our next one. Now we want to keep in mind how much room we have at the bottom. So remember, I drew this line. Remember, this is going to be where we trim. When we add our back on, that brings that border around to the front, well, there's another inch. So I'm not going to concern myself with the last, say, 1.5, 2 inches of making sure there's a line. So see how, if you can see here, and see the distance. So I have about, so you can compare it to yours. So I have about 4 inches. Well, actually, I have about 5.5 inches from here all the way to the end. So you're going to think, oh, I need to put 2 more lines in there somehow. No, I don't, because I'm going to come up an inch for the trim. I'm going to come up an inch for the border. And so I got plenty of room here. Without for just one line, I don't need 2. So I'm just going to start again. and draw another line. Now I got a little extra. Can you see my little extra? I got like a little come up, go down, come up, go down. See it there? So now I can look at it and go, well, yeah, that doesn't look too bad. Then change it. So if I don't like this middle part here, for some reason, I just put my pressing mat down, and I just took that little part out. And you see, I took it right out. I want to wait a minute for it to cool, because the pen won't work when it's hot, because heat takes it away. And I'm just going to redraw that. Now I got this little funny looking one here, and I'm doing this so that you can see that until you stitch, you can change whatever you want if you're using the friction pen. Now, when you're using the friction pen, you don't need to do it as dark as I did it. I'm doing it darker so that you can see it. You just need to be able to sort of follow the line. And so I just made a little gentler curve there, because this is, I'm thinking about wind kind of going along here. Okay, does anybody have any questions? Can you see my lines here? Okay, so let's get ready to sew. I have so let me back us up here again. Oops, sorry. And I will bring my my sewing machine back around. Okay, let's see if you can see that okay. Okay, so I have regular sewing thread in this time. I have my walking foot on back here. I'm going to change my stitch length. I'm on a straight stitch. I'm on a straight stitch that's in the center. The needle's in the center. And I'm going to change my stitch length to 3. That's my personal preference. If you have a pivot feature on your machine, make sure your pivot's on. Okay? What we're going to do is we're going to sew down, and then we're going to sew back, then we're going to sew down, and then we're going to sew back. Okay? We don't want to just keep going the same way every time, because that'll start to bow your fabric a little bit. I got a lot of hand motion going here today. The big thing you want to remember is you don't have to be exactly on the line that you drew. Don't stress about that, because the line's going to go away when we press it. It's just kind of a guide to keep you so that you don't go, oh, where do I go next? Okay, so is everybody ready to stitch? Are there any questions before we start stitching? Okay. And I know there's a little delay, so now I can start my stitching at the edge of my fabric and come onto it a little bit. I don't want to be past the edge where I flip this fabric back with my foot. Okay, remember, there's going to be an inch gone all the way around. So I just want to make sure that my fabric is actually under my needle. Okay? Are we good to go? And we're just going to stitch at a moderate speed. So if you have speed control, just put it in the middle. If you want to go faster, that's up to you. I'll never know. But fast sewing doesn't make good sewing. So we're just going to mosey along. And see how I'm turning my fabric. And I'll see if I can show you that that my stitching isn't following my line exactly. It's just a guide. Okay, so Christine, I stopped at this point just for you. Christine was asking me the other day in a class about what you do when your fabric gets here. Okay, and a lot of times you don't have fabric on this side when you're sewing because you have a seam allowance. This hand is going to stay with the fabric, and if you can just watch mine, you see, I'm staying with the fabric until I'm done sewing. And the reason for that is if I let go, yeah, my machine is great. It'll sew right along. But when the fabric gets near the end and it's in under the foot, it'll want to go like, generally I think it's off to the left. So let's see if you can see. Well, let me see if I can zoom down. That seems to be, yeah, we go. Okay. So you can see right there. Here's my sewing, my stitches, and here's my line I drew. They're not exact. It was just a guideline for me to follow. See, I'm not exactly on it. It doesn't matter. Okay? So close your eyes while I zoom back. There we go. So I sewed down this way. I'm going to turn this around, and now I'm going to sew back in the other direction. And I'm going to stop every now and again, make sure my fabric is staying nice and flat because I'm kind of spreading it out as I go along. If you're using chalk, be careful where you put your hands because you'll rub your chalk away. I really didn't follow my line this time. I looked up to see if there were any questions. See, I wasn't even close that time, but that's okay. So I came down this way. Now I've got to turn around and go back the other way. And let me just check and see if anybody has any questions. Nope. And I have one more line to go. Excuse me. So now I'm going to stitch back the other way. Now I was quite a bit off on this line because I decided as I was stitching along that I really wanted to be a little lower than I had my line. So let me zoom in. So see, here's my drawn line, and here's where I went to. And when I got down here, you see there's my drawn line, and there's where I went to. So I didn't have to stop and redraw it, because that's too much work. Remember, this isn't your prom dress, it's just a placemat. So now I'm going to iron away all those lines so no one will ever know if I was on the lines or not. I won't even know. And you'll probably be at your regular ironing station with a bigger iron. And let me get rid of my mat. I'm going to move my machine out of the way. And so there I am. So you see my lines? They aren't all the same. They aren't perfect. They just are. Okay? Now, I wanted to make note of, because I don't have my big iron up, but when I ironed that embroidery thread, I really ironed and stayed in one place for a while. And I think with the embroidery thread, it does shrink a little bit, because I'm ironing on, this is my regular cotton. I use Aurifil cotton. And I'm not getting any puckering at all. So I wanted you to be aware of that. Sometimes things happen when you're sewing, and you always think that it must be something that you did. And sometimes it isn't. It isn't what you did. So does everybody have their quilting done? If not, you can keep quilting along, because I'm going to talk about now. I'm going to talk about all the stuff I dropped on the floor. So I need some steam machine. And I need the patterns. And remember, as I said before, if you go over to Miss Loreens Schoolhouse Facebook, I did a post this morning that has a link for you to click on to download, and it's free. It's in my, it's at payhip.com, but it'll just take you there. It's just a place I have to put the pattern for you to be able to get to it, and it'll come up as $0. So this is our two pieces. So the first thing I want to talk about is, and let me come in closer. There we go. So up here is a little picture of what it's supposed to look like. Okay. Now you notice this is the one you're going to trace, and you go, first of all, you're going, oh gosh, that's a lot of branches. But we'll discuss that in a minute. But what I want you to make note of is I put right here, already reversed for tracing onto fusible web. Because when you're using fusible web, because you're going to trace out the design of the shape on the fusible web, and the web goes behind your fabric, and then you're cutting from behind your fabric, or the back side of your fabric, it comes out in reverse order. And I can show you that. So if you look at this one, here's how this is how the witch will look after you trace this and use your steam machine. And I'm going to show you my other one, because I was in a big rush and I forgot to reverse it. So see, my witch is going the other way. So is my tree, but you don't really notice it. So if you want your witch to face the other direction, so as it is, this witch in this direction using fusible web is going to end up looking like that. So if you want it to be in this direction when you're done, you're going to have to turn this over, and you'll have to use a light box or your window or something. Let me see if I can. No, you can't see it up there. And then trace it from the wrong side. That's the only way to do that. Okay? So when it says reversed for tracing on diffusible web, that means this shape is, when it's done, is going to end up facing in this direction. So if you're ever doing an applique pattern, the first thing you want to check for, and they should generally always tell you either on the page, some will tell you right on the page where the shapes are, some will tell you in the instructions you need to reverse or already reversed, because some appliques are made for hand stitching, and there are some companies that give you both. So having said that, if you were taking these and you were going to cut them out on your scan and cut, so you're going to scan this in and cut it, you don't want it reversed. So when you scan this in to your scan and cut, and I'll be doing, we're doing some videos on that, you'll have to, in the scan and cut, you can reverse it back. Because with your scan and cut, you're cutting from on top of the fabric, even though it's got fusible web underneath, you're cutting from on top of the fabric, where if you're using a fusible web that goes on the back of your fabric, you're cutting from the back of the fabric. So hopefully you're all still there and didn't leave me on that one. So the next thing I want to look at, so let me back up a little bit again. There you go. So the next thing I want to look at is, I want to look at these and see what's the same color fabric. So my tree and my witch are the same color fabric. So when I trace them onto steamer seam, I'm going to trace them together near each other, so I can take that one piece and put it on the back of my black fabric. In this case, with the moon, my moon is not the same color as the little face of my tree, so they're going to get traced separately. So I'm going to show you how I trace and cut out, and I'm going to use this one to do it. So steamer seam, and I can't speak for anything else, has a grid on it. You see the grid? And you see on the back there's no grid. So the grid, the number 2 on the steamer seam means that there's 2 pieces of paper. There's one on each side of the glue. It's just 2 pieces of paper really with the webbing of glue in between it. I want to be on the side that has the grid because it's made to release this back paper easier than this front paper. So all I'm going to do is, so for example, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to come back in close again. Let me move up there. So I'm going to trace this moon. Now, if you want to be exact, you can. I'm not. So if you want to be exact, you can find something like that maybe is the same size and trace around it if you want to. And here's why I'm not exact. Because I can trace this exact, but when I cut it out, I won't be exact. Now, if I want this to be really exact cutting, I'm going to scan this in to my scan and cut, and I can either use this circle, or I can get a circle from the scan and cut that's already there and just make it this size, and it'll cut a perfect circle. Okay? But my moon, it has a lot of cheese on it, so it's not, it has some, might have some little bumps to it. And I'm going to use a pencil. I never use a pen. And I want to try to make sure that I'm not, as much as I can, I don't want the pencil underneath, the pencil marks underneath my hand. So I don't want to do this part first and then go on top of it with my hand and smudge it. Okay? And you notice I'm just doing a little bit at a time, and I just stop and do a little bit more and just stop. I don't try to go all the way around without stopping. There's no reward at the end of the day if you didn't stop with your drawing. If I have a whole bunch of pieces, I'll name this one and I'll just stick the name in the middle. I don't have that many pieces, but you could be in the habit of doing that. Now, my moon is going to be all by itself without any other color. So I'm just going to cut it out roughly. And I am going to trim some of this off because I don't need to waste my fabric. But I'm not being perfect by any means. Okay? So let me move this, and I'll do my moon. And I need my fabric, my moon fabric. And I've already cut out on here. And see, when I cut out last time, I wanted to be in a certain place. So I moved my my moon over. Let me get up so you can see. Because I didn't want to have all this dark in my moon. I could, but I didn't. Okay. Now this is a batik. It doesn't have a right and wrong side to it. You want to make sure that you're putting this on the back of your fabric. Back of your fabric. I can't tell you how many times people have laid all of their stuff down, pressed it, and they had it on the front. Well, it's glue. Once you take the other paper off, it's glue. There's nothing, you can't salvage it. There's no way to salvage it. So I'm going to take off my back paper and see how easily it comes away. And make sure when you peel this paper away that you're nice and sticky on this side and not sticky on this side. If your sticky is on this side, put it back together, kind of rub it a little bit, and see if you can get that glue to stay on this side or move to another spot. If you handle it a lot, that can happen. So I'm going to take this away, and I'm just going to stick my moon where I want it to be. And then I can just cut out around that. Okay? I want to use my applique pressing sheet, and you can't see me, but I'm looking all around because it was in that stuff that all fell down. Here we go. So an applique pressing sheet is silicone. So a pressing cloth is cotton fabric. An applique pressing sheet is silicone. And I don't really have any problem because I don't have any of this hanging off the edge. But to always be on the safe side, I'm going to lay my applique pressing mat down because I don't want glue stuck on this good wool mat because you know those aren't cheap. Okay, and then I'll just bring up the other side. I'm not going to crease this. I'm going to be, let me see if I can get up. Let me back up just a tad. Here we go. So I don't want to put a crease in that. Okay. And I normally would use my big iron because it has more weight. But I'm just going to put this down and I'm going to count to like, I don't know, 15, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And I'm going to pick it up and I'm going to move it over. And you'll notice sometimes on your iron where you have all those holes. See, this doesn't, well, okay, so you see the little bitty holes there? So you know how your iron has a lot of those holes? So you got to make sure that if you have the iron where all the holes are, over your fusible, there's going to be the places where the holes are that aren't fusing the fusible down. And you would actually see it. You would see this would be like different shades. Okay? So I'm looking at this, and can you see it's a little different shade here? So I might not have had the iron all the way up there. So I'm just going to do it again. I'm going to come over, and I'm pressing down because I don't have any weight to this iron. And I don't want you to count 1001, 1002. Just count to like 15. And it's going to be hot. Hot, hot, hot. Let me set this down. Hot, hot. I'm going to wait a minute. And now is when I want to cut. So I cut, oops, sorry. So I cut it on my line. If you're not sure whether to be on the line, inside the line, outside the line, I usually will cut just outside my line, because if I cut inside my line, I don't know how far inside I am. And when I cut, I'm cutting up here. I'm not cutting way down here, because using the point of scissors, you're just asking for trouble. So I'm going to cut, and I'm not moving my scissors around, I'm moving this. So see if you can see that I'm doing that. And I'm just going, cutting my scissors, but I'm moving the fabric around. See, my scissors are staying in the same place. And you just want to take your time. And there's my moon. This fabric is staying on for now, so I can just get rid of this. So let me back up. Let me back up again. There we go. Okay, is everybody with me? Any questions? Okay, so today or next Saturday, before I go any further, in case any of you leave because you already know how to do this, for next Saturday, I just want you to have your pieces cut out and your quilting done. Don't put these on yet, and don't stitch them. We're going to do that next Saturday. And also, before I forget, next Saturday is my work day. I work one Saturday a month. That sounds like I only work once a month, doesn't it? That'd be nice. I work next Saturday, so I won't be able to have my YouTube at 1. I'll try my best to be as close to 1:30 as I can. I'm teaching a machine embroidery class. It gets done at 12:30, and it depends if I have to go over a little bit or not. So, and I know it's not easy for you guys to just sit there and wait. So it could be, I would say 1:30, 1:45 in there. I'm not sure. I should be all set. I was trying to think of what the project was. It won't take us too long. So anyway, so next week is 1:30, hopefully 1:30. Okay, so there's your little moon. Okay, and you've marked it moon in case you're not sure. And when you're doing a lot of applique, there's sometimes a lot of pieces. So the next thing I'm going to do is the witch. I want to talk about the tree for a minute. So this tree looks horrible. So let me do the witch first. Just remember, when you're tracing the tree, it doesn't have to be exact, because it's a dead tree. So your branches could be a little different. So if I'm going to put this all on one fabric, I want to make sure, let me back up again. Oh, back up again here. So if I'm going to put this all on one fabric, I want to make sure that wherever my tree is, so my tree is here, that I can put my witch under it. So my witch would be like right here next to the tree. And I would cut this whole thing out at one time, put it on the back of my fabric, and then go in and I would probably just cut around this one just so it's easier to handle. and then I can cut them out. So especially if you have a lot of little pieces that are the same color, it just will save on your steamer seam. So for today, I'm just going to do it. I'm just going to do this witch. Okay, and let's see if I can. So when I do this witch, that's not helping any, is it? That's just making me dizzy now. Oh, there you go. Can you see the witches there? So it doesn't matter which way I have my paper to draw. I'm going to have to back up because I don't think I can draw that far away from myself. Okay. So you wouldn't have this paper hanging up on top of your sewing machine. So I'm just putting this witch, oh, you can see the witch right there. And again, I'm going to draw from the left to the right. If I'm left-handed, I'm going to draw from the right to the left, just so I don't have my hand rubbing my pencil away. And you will get it's not lead, but we'll call it lead. The pencil graphite, I guess will get all of it. You just stop and go wash your hands. It's okay. And again, I'm on the graph side of my paper. And I don't have to be exact. It's a witch silhouette. She has a big nose and a big chin. I'm going to come in the places where they're between the arms, and I'll show you that in a minute and get those done. Okay, so sometimes I'm tracing down and sometimes I'm tracing up. It really depends on what is easier for you. I do it because my hand doesn't turn all the way. So I don't know if I do that because of that reason or if that's just what I do. I don't know. But I know I don't have to be exact. I mean, I don't want it to look like a blob. I want it to still look like a witch when I'm done. That's always helpful. Excuse me. So there's my witch. Now that didn't take any time. So I was talking about, you see these two little spots I have to cut out because that separates one arm from the other and then the second arm from the body. So it looks, so you can see the witch better. You see them? These two little pieces look like little islands. So I made them a little bigger. It doesn't hurt anything. So again, I'm just going to cut around. That's all I have to do. You don't need to cut it out perfect twice. You just waste. It's just a waste of time. Trust me, you're not going to save any more fabric by doing that. Okay. Now I'm using like a Kona cotton, straight black, solid black fabric. It tends not to have a right and wrong side. You pick which side you like. And I'm just going to trim a little bit more of this off. And again, I'm peeling off the back. And if I can't grab a hold of it, I'm just going to give it a little wrinkle. And generally, that pulls the back away from the front. And I got to make sure that's my sticky side. Okay? I'm all the way on the fabric. I'm not hanging off anywhere. But I'm still going to use my applique pressing sheet. Underneath, I'm going to get my fabric up out of the way so you can see. So I got my my pressing mat, or you'd be at your ironing board. I have my applique pressing sheet under. Even though this is fabric here, I'm gonna tell you that always use it under and over, because you're gonna forget, and a piece of this is gonna be hanging off, and that glue is gonna be permanently on your rather expensive wool mat or on your ironing board, and you want to make sure you have it over it because it's going to do the same thing to your iron. Okay? So I'd say go ahead and count to 14 for me, but I can't hear you. 14, 15, what are we at? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. Pick it up and move. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. If you want to pick 15, that's okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I'm going to look at it, make sure it looks all the same color, and you'll see it. Part of it will look grayer than another part. Okay? And I'm just going to check this edge right here, because we tend, when we press these down, we tend to miss the edges. Or if you get the edges, you tend to miss the middle. So I'm just going to be on the safe side. And you don't want to pull so if you are going, you don't want to mess with the paper that's left here while it's hot. Oh, my applique, that little iron is pretty hot. Problem is it doesn't have a lot of weight to it. And I'm just going to trim. Ooh, it's hot. I'm going to trim out around. Burning my fingers. So normally I would just leave it on my ironing board and let it set there for a minute and cool off. Or I'd just slide it off and get ready to work on the next piece. I want to get in closer now. Okay, so there's my little witchy poo. Okay, right now it looks like a beak for a bird. That's pretty funny. And that's because when I traced, you see how I made that chin pointed? So when I come around to that chin, I'm going to curve it more. So it's more like a chin. And maybe make it a little longer, because it actually is really, see how the chin's a little longer? So I'm going to give her a little cosmetic surgery along the way. So again, I'm in here with my scissors, and I'm moving the fabric or the witch with my left hand. So do you notice my scissors are staying in the same place? And I'm taking small bites because I've got small areas here. And let's see if I can perform a little surgery on my witch. So that's her nose. And then I'm coming back for her chin, and I'm going to come out a little longer, and I'm going to curve it. And as I'm curving it, I'm actually pressing down a little bit with my scissors to just cut that little bit. So let's see. See how you can see the pencil is still there? So I went out around the pencil. Instead of coming to a point, I curved around. So she looks a little better. Because now that I pointed out that it looks like a crow, that's probably all you'll see. And I'm going to show you that I'm not always right on the line, but in the case of this silhouette with the witch, and especially the tree, it doesn't matter. When I did my tree the first time, I cut off one of the little branches all the way off. But nobody's going to know that. So this part of my witch is in, I can't see, it's in my way. So I'm going to have to come in from the other direction and come back. So don't try to stay the same way the whole time and make it harder. Just, you know, pick your scissors up, move them around. I hope you can see it okay. Well, this is the quietest class you've ever had, isn't it? What I'm trying to avoid is being perfectly straight in places that I shouldn't be perfectly straight. So like this, yeah, let me get this guy part out of the way. So the cape, I'm just going to put a little curve to it. Okay, so there's our witch. Now, the reason I wanted to show you this one is we gotta cut out our two little, I'm gonna call my two little islands. So I need to get in here, and I don't need to poke anything. If I just fold this, can you see how I kind of folded it? So I'm folding, I'm working on the top island, the top arm. I'm just going to fold it in half so that I know when I clip that, and I'm coming in with my scissors because I generally get in trouble if I use the tips. But I'm just going to come in a little ways and just give it a little squeeze. And can you see how I made that little slit there? See the little slit? So now, and you can switch to smaller scissors. I normally would. So now, because I don't have my smaller scissors, I'm going to have to use the tip of these scissors and just snip my way. The problem when you snip, and I'll see if it'll do that, is it might give you little ridges. Let me see if I have, let me get my other scissors here. Let me put that here. Let me put that like that so you can look at how I'm working on doing that little island. Okay, so I got my other scissors, and these are my embroidery scissors, and they're a long ways away from my hand, so I'm not sure how I'm going to like that. But what I don't want to do is, these are my snips for my thread. I don't want to start cutting things like this, because what it does is it separates the two, I don't know, I'm going to call them prongs, the two cutting parts, a little bit away from each other, and then it won't snip my threads real close anymore. So if you have a pair of little snips for your thread, no matter how you might be tempted, don't use them, especially for something like this, because there's a lot of thickness to it. So I'm just going to come in, and I'm not sure if I can. So these scissors wouldn't necessarily be my recommendation. Only because, see how far my hand is away from here? So I have less control there. Took me a minute or two to get used to it, but now that I'm used to it, it's not too bad. But it wouldn't be my first choice. And I'm just going to get into this little section. I know my finger's bigger than the little section that I'm cutting. But you notice I don't keep turning my scissors, I'm turning my witch. . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . . The other thing that you want to make sure you do when you're cutting little areas is make sure that the fabric is if the fabric is not well adhered to the paper, you'll end up cutting paper and not the fabric. So see? Well, let me put it here. So see, we got a little, and again, it's the illusion of it's a silhouette of the witch. It doesn't matter if it's perfect. So let me just do the other one. I know it's not easy to see, but we'll try it anyways. So I'm doing this little piece here, this little island. So I'm going to cut it. I'm going to fold it in half and snip it. This feels so far away from my hand. When you try it, you'll see. So I'm just going to snip it, and I'm going to, just so I can get a pair of scissors in here. So I'm just snipping in the center that's going to be cut out. I'm trying to do it so you can see it. I feel like I'm just working my way around. And all I did was pull that out of my way. So if you need to come in and do just a little bit at a time, it's okay. Does anybody have any questions while I feel like you're watching paint dry here. And see, so let me see if you can, and normally you don't cut on top of your pressing mat. So see, so this arm is separated and this arm is separated from this body. Now, watch see if you can see when I turn this over, I didn't get, can you see how I still have drawing around there? Do you see it, the pencil? So I didn't get it perfect. Now I can go in and mess around with it if I want to, but I'm going to turn it over and look and go, okay, the whole point for this space was to separate the top arm from the bottom arm, and the reason for this space is to separate the arm from the body. So as long as I visually have that, I don't need to keep messing around with it. So see, now we have our moon and our witch. So are there any questions? So you're going to do the exact same thing with the tree. Actually, the tree is easier than that part of those little pieces of the witch. When you trace this tree, don't trace the face. You're going to trace the face separate from the tree. Okay? So if you need to make a note of that, we're not putting a hole in the tree. That's too much work. Okay? So when you're going to do the tree, just pretend that's not there and trace your whole tree out. And if your branches go out a little different or one's a little longer or shorter, it's okay. That's fine. And then you're going to put your steamer seam over just the face. See if I got a... So you can see. Let me put it over here because I got a little extra piece over here. And if your mouth's a little crookeder or a little different from this one, it's okay. So here's my little Here's my little, can't even hold on to it. Here's my little face. That will go onto the fabric you want your face to be, yellow. And then you cut out your little pieces. And these pieces aren't, after you do the witch and where the arms is, this is going to be seem like a breeze to you. Okay, so now when I do the tree, and I didn't leave myself enough room, see my branches are sticking up. So I'm going to come over here to this side. Let me move this for a minute. I just want you to make sure that you're tracing. So I'm going to trace. I'm going to go this way. Well, let me see. You know, no matter which way you set it on your paper, you'll wish you'd set it a different way. So when I do, we move up here. There we go. Don't be jamming your stuff all around like I'm doing. So I want to make sure that my tree isn't falling off the edge of my steamer seam. And I'm just going to trace this bottom part so you can see what I mean. And if you need to make your branches a little bit bigger so you don't worry about, you know, cutting too small pieces, you can do that. Just don't make them like logs. So I'm just going to do this part so you can see. So see, when I trace the tree, I'm not tracing the face in there. The face goes on afterwards. Okay, and I probably should have made a note on there. I wasn't thinking about it, to be honest with you. Or I could have set the face aside into a little area. Okay, so if you do trace it, just don't cut it out. So don't like do it over. Just don't cut it out. So if you trace your face first and then do your tree, that will help you to remember not to trace on the face on the tree. But even if you do, you just don't cut it out. Okay? So, is there any questions? I know we didn't do a lot of sewing today, but we got our quilting done. The other thing you want to make sure is that you have your, let me back up a little bit more. Here we go. Oh. Make sure you have your back fabric. So your back fabric is, we're gonna trim this, and you can go ahead and trim this. You're gonna trim it to 12 by 16, the same as we did last week. So if you have any questions about that, you can go back to last week's Saturday video where we made this the first time. And so this will get trimmed 12 by 16, and then you're going to have your back piece that comes from the back around to the front to make the borders. That's 16 by 20. And the rest of this stuff is just kind of scraps if you got it. So I'm going to wait a second to see if anybody has any questions. I was trying to pick up my scissors for my mouse. That isn't going to work, is it? Nope. I don't see any more questions. Okay, so thank you everyone for joining in. Be sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't. Ring the little bell to get your reminders of when I post a video or when I go live. And a thumbs up is always nice. And again, thanks everyone for joining me. If you have any questions, I guess the best thing to do was go to my Miss Loreens Schoolhouse Facebook page, and the post from this morning that shows the picture of the witch and so forth. You can just put your questions there, and hopefully I can just answer them from that point. So, because I don't want you to sit this week wondering what you need to do. You got your quilting done. Trim that to 12 by 16. You're going to trace and cut out your pieces. but you're not going to put them onto your fabric yet. So the paper that's on the back stays on the back. Okay, so again, thanks everyone for joining in, and I'll see you next Saturday as close to 1:30 as I can. So thank you.